The emergency call reached Captain Rendall on the bridge of the Drevian science vessel Inquiry at 3:40 station time, and the first thing his superior said was not hello. It was, "Tell me you didn't touch the sleepers." Wren looked at his first officer. His first officer looked at the floor. "We ran standard awakening protocol," Wren said carefully. "Science Director Hall authorized the full research sequence. It was a routine data collection." His superior's voice changed into something Wren had never heard from him before. "Abort everything," the superior said. "Get out of that system right now. All 6 ships, immediately. Do you understand me? Immediately." "Sir," Wren said, "we have 6 warships and Earth's nearest installation is 40 light hours away. It's 1,000 humans in cryo. We have complete." The signal cut. Not because the connection failed. Because something had overridden every Drevian communication channel simultaneously. All of them. Fleet command frequency, ship to ship, emergency bands, everything. Overridden and replaced by a single transmission that was already playing when Wren realized the signal had cut. A woman's voice, completely calm, the kind of calm that was not the absence of something but the presence of something else, something that had decided what it was going to do and no longer needed to spend energy on the deciding. "This is Commander Sierra Voss, Earth Sleeper Protection Division. You have 40 minutes to leave Station Kairos. After that, we are coming in." Then silence. Complete silence on every channel. Wren looked at his sensor officer, at his first officer, at his communications officer, who was staring at his panel with the expression of a man who had just watched something happen that he did not have a technical explanation for. "How did they get that signal in here?" Wren said. Nobody answered. "How did they override our fleet channels?" he said. Nobody answered. He looked at the chronometer. 40 minutes, he said. His first officer said very quietly, "Sir, they said 40 minutes, not 40 hours." Wren understood what he meant. Earth's nearest known installation was 40 light hours away. Known. He looked at the chronometer again, then at the sensor display, then out the forward viewport at Station Kairos, dark and quiet in the space ahead, 6 Drevian ships arrayed around it, and somewhere inside it, 1,000 humans who should have been asleep for 4 more years. He opened the channel to Science Director Hall Met. "Sir," he said, "we need to talk." 7 hours earlier, Station Kairos had been having a quiet day. Station Commander Yeva Park had been reviewing supply manifests when the proximity alert sounded. 6 ships on approach. Drevian registry. The lead vessel was broadcasting a navigational emergency signal, standard protocol, legitimate format, the kind of signal that any inhabited station was treaty-bound to respond to. She granted docking clearance. She met them at the airlock personally, the way a station commander met any vessel that docked under emergency protocol, with her 2 senior staff and the professional courtesy that neutral space required. The research teams came through the airlock in organized groups. 2 organized, some part of her noted, for a crew responding to a genuine emergency. But the credentials were valid and the treaty language was clear, and she was processing the thought when the first group split from the main body and moved toward the cryo bay corridor with the specific efficiency of people who knew exactly where they were going. She stepped in front of them. "This is a restricted section," she said. "Cryo bay access requires station authorization." Science Director Hall Met stepped forward. He was a large Drevian, 6-limbed, the purple scaling of an elder researcher, with the particular manner of someone who had spent 50 years being the most important person in any room he entered. He showed her a research authorization document, Galactic Council format, legitimate seals. Under Article 7 of the Research Access Protocols, he said, established scientific institutions may conduct observational research on. She looked at the document. She looked at the corridor behind him. She looked at his research teams. "This covers observational research on consenting subjects," she said. "My cryo population is not consenting. They are asleep." "Their institutional representatives consented on their behalf at enrollment," Hall said. "The language in Article 7 is—" "You are not coming into my cryo bay," she said. He nodded to someone behind her. Two Drevian security personnel took her by the arms. She fought. She was not a small woman, and she had been doing physical fitness maintenance for 11 years in a deep space posting, and she fought correctly, the way her training had taught her. And it was not enough because there were two of them and they were larger, and there were 6 ships outside and she was alone. They put her in her office and locked the door. Through the walls, she heard the cryo bay corridor open. She heard the sound of equipment being deployed. She found her emergency kit under her desk. She started building something from the components inside it, with shaking hands and complete focus, because Yeva Park had been station commander for 11 years and she was not done yet. The 4-second transmission reached Earth Sleeper Protection Division at 2:47 Standard Time. Commander Sierra Voss was at her desk. She was always at her desk. Her staff had a running debate about whether she slept in the office or simply did not sleep, a debate she was aware of and had never bothered to resolve. The transmission came through on the emergency beacon frequency with Yeva Park's authorization code attached, which meant it had gone through the deep space relay network and lost most of its content, which was why it was 4 seconds instead of whatever Yeva had actually said. The authorization code was intact. The word Sleeper Accord violation were intact. Station Kairos was intact. That was enough. Sierra opened a channel to Earth Defense Grid 7. "Station Kairos," she said, "full response." The officer on the other end of that channel did not ask questions. Full response had a specific meaning and a specific procedure, and the procedure was already running before the channel closed. She opened the channel to Station Kairos's primary frequency and broadcast on every band. "This is Commander Sierra Voss, Earth Sleeper Protection Division. You have 40 minutes to leave Station Kairos. After that, we are coming in." She closed the channel. She pulled up the Station Kairos personnel manifest. She ran her finger down the cryo population list. She found Marcus Voss, Base 7, 11 years into a 15-year medical research protocol. Early awakening risk, permanent neurological disruption to language and motor function. Severity dependent on protocol used and duration of premature exposure. She closed the file. She did not open it again. She had a job to do, and she was going to do it exactly the same way she would have done it if his name had not been on that list. Because the 999 other people on that list deserved someone who was going to do it that way. She opened the next file. She got to work. Science Director Hall met, received Commander Voss's warning message, and read it twice. Then he looked at the chronometer and did the math. 40 minutes, he said to Captain Rendall, who had come to his research station personally, which Hall found slightly irritating. Earth's nearest military installation is 40 light hours away. This is an empty threat. Rendall stood in the doorway of the research station and looked at Hall with an expression that Hall did not have the experience to read correctly, because it was the expression of a man who understood something that the person he was looking at did not, and was deciding how much to say. "Their nearest known installation," Ren said. Hall looked at him. "The research is nearly complete. We have perhaps 4 more hours of data collection, and then we leave with everything we came for. A threat from a commander who cannot reach us in 40 minutes is not relevant to that timeline." "Sir," Ren said, "I have been in space for 30 years. I have never heard of Earth Defense Grid 7. Hall said, "That's because it's a designation, not an actual." "She called it by name," Ren said. "She said it by name, she didn't say Earth Defense. She said Grid 7, specifically. Hall was quiet for a moment. Continue the research, he said. Ren looked at him for a moment longer. Then he went back to his ship, because Hall had said continue and Hall outranked him, and Ren had spent 30 years following orders from people who outranked him. But he left the command channel to Hall's research station open, and he sat in his command chair, and he watched the chronometer, and he thought about the specific certainty in the voice that had overridden every Drevian communication channel simultaneously. Dr. Orenthal of the Galactic Medical Ethics Board reached Hall on emergency channel at the 30-minute mark. Orenthal was 300 years old and had been on the ethics board for 80 of them, and he had the voice of someone who had delivered bad news so many times that bad news had worn grooves into his vocal cords. Director, he said, stop the protocol. Release the station commander. Prepare your research teams for ethics review. The research is nearly complete, Hall said. Director, I need you to hear what I'm saying. Earth does not negotiate sleeper accord violations. This is not a situation with a diplomatic resolution. Stop what you are doing and leave. Now. They cannot reach us in 40 minutes, Hall said. There was a pause. Director Orenthal said, I want you to think carefully about something. The sleeper accords were signed 30 years ago. They were signed by 47 species. Every one of those species signed them voluntarily, not because Earth has the largest military or the most political influence. Because every one of those species had seen what happened the one time, 30 years ago, before the Accords existed, when someone did what you are doing right now. I wasn't aware of a precedent incident, Hall said. It is not in the public record, Oren said. At Earth's request, they asked that it not be publicized. They asked that the Accords be sufficient, that the Accords would make it unnecessary for anyone to know what had happened to the species that woke the sleepers before there were Accords. Hall was quiet. Director Oren said, how do you think the sleeper Accords got written? The channel was silent. Then Hall said, the research is nearly complete. He closed the channel. Orenthal sat in his office on a space station 3 systems away and looked at nothing for a moment. Then he opened his own emergency channel, because there was one more thing he could do, and he was going to do it. He called Captain Rendall. Yeva Park's jury-rig transmitter worked on the 23rd attempt. She had been building it for 6 hours in her locked office, working from the emergency kit components with the focused problem-solving of a woman who had been told this posting was peaceful and had studied emergency communications protocols anyway, because she was the kind of person who studied emergency communications protocols. She did not try to reach Earth. Earth already knew. She reached Rendall's ship directly. Captain Dahl, she said, I know you know this is wrong. I know because you're still in command of a working ship, and if you had personally authorized what's happening in my cryo bay, you would have found a reason to be somewhere else rather than sitting where you can think about it. Static on the channel. You have 28 minutes, she said. Get your people off my station. She released the transmit button. She waited. Nothing. She put the transmitter down, looked at the wall. On the other side of that wall was a corridor. At the end of that corridor was her cryo bay. In her cryo bay were 1,000 people who had trusted this station and this posting and the sleeper accords and her specifically to keep them safe, while they slept through 4 years of a medical research protocol that was supposed to save lives. She had let 6 ships dock. She had let them through the airlock. She pressed her hand flat against the wall. I'm coming, she said, to the wall, to the corridor, to the bay on the other side. I'm coming. Then she went back to her transmitter and started working on increasing the range. Rendall received Yeva Park's transmission and Dr. Orenthal's call within 6 minutes of each other. He sat with both of them for approximately 90 seconds. Then he did something that a Drevian ship captain had not done in the recorded history of Drevian space operations. He opened the all ships channel. "All Drevian personnel," he said. "This is Captain Dahl. We are leaving Station Kairos. All research teams, all security personnel, all support staff. You have 20 minutes to reach the docking collars. Anyone not aboard at the 20-minute mark does not come home with us." His command channel erupted with Hallmet's voice immediately. "Captain Dahl, you do not have the authority to." Ren turned off the command channel. He looked at his first officer. "Get our people moving," he said. His first officer was already moving. In the cryo bay, the lights were wrong. The standard cryo lighting was dim blue, calibrated to not disturb the sleeping population, a color that the station's designers had chosen because something about deep blue light felt appropriate for a room full of people who were supposed to be very far from waking. The research teams had brought their own lights, bright white, clinical. Station medical staff, all 12 of them, were moving through the bay with the specific controlled urgency of people who did not have the resources to handle what was in front of them, but were handling it anyway because there was nobody else. Most of the 1,000 were in various states of semi-consciousness, eyes open but unfocused, limbs moving without coordination. The sounds they made were the sounds of people trying to form words without the full cognitive machinery to form them, fragments of language stripped of the structure that made language work. Junior Medical Officer Tess Akefer found him in Bay 7. He was sitting up on his cryo platform, thermal blanket around his shoulders, looking at his hands with the careful attention of someone who was not sure his hands belonged to him. She checked his ID against the manifest. Marcus Voss, age 31, 11 years cryo, early awakening protocol disruption. She noted the specific pattern of his responses, delayed, simplified, the motor coordination slightly off in the way that indicated the particular pathway the disruption had taken. He looked up at her. He said a name. Not quite right, 2 syllables where 3 should have been, the first sound too hard, the last sound swallowed. She understood what name he was trying to say. She did not know who that person was to him. She did not know that the name he was saying and the name of the person who had sent the 40-minute warning were the same name. She knew he needed to hear something true and something kind, and that those two things were not always available simultaneously. She chose kind. She said she's on her way. She moved to the next platform. The chronometer reached 40 minutes. On the Drevian sensor display, 3 signatures that had been approaching from 3 separate vectors for the past 25 minutes arrived simultaneously at Station Kairos. They did not announce themselves. They did not hail. They took position around the station with the unhurried precision of vessels that knew where they were going and had been going there for 25 minutes and had simply arrived at the expected time. Ren Dahl's sensor officer had been watching them for 23 of those 25 minutes, since they had first appeared at the edge of sensor range, and had spent those 23 minutes trying to identify them and failing. Not because the sensors were malfunctioning. Because the vessels were not in any recognition database she had access to. Not Drevian databases, not the shared galactic registry, not the cross-referenced commercial shipping logs or the military vessel catalog or the deep space exploration records. They were simply not there. "Sir," she said, "I have 3 contacts, configuration unknown, energy signature unknown, approach vector." She stopped. "Sir, the approach vector is wrong. They did not come from the direction of any known Earth installation." Ren looked at the display. "They came from 3 directions," his first officer said quietly, simultaneously. "Sir," the sensor officer said, "their weapons are already locked on all 6 of our ships, all weapons, simultaneously, before they even finished decelerating." The bridge was very quiet. Ren opened the hail channel. The response came before he had finished opening it, as if the other side had been waiting with the channel ready. Captain Dahl. The voice was the same voice that had overridden every Drevian channel 40 minutes ago. I understand you ordered the evacuation. Thank you for that. She paused for exactly 1 second. I need you to tell me where Science Director Hall Met is right now. Wren looked at his first officer. He is in the station's research data center, Wren said. He has been there for the last 40 minutes. He did not evacuate with the research teams. A brief pause. Is your crew clear of the station? Yes, Wren said. My people are aboard. The research teams are aboard. We followed your timeline. Thank you, Captain. Please hold your position. This will not take long. The channel closed. Wren looked at the 3 unknown vessels, holding position around his fleet. Weapons still locked, his sensor officer confirmed. He nodded. He held his position. Hall Met was downloading data when everything went dark. Not the lights. The environmental system stayed on. The lighting stayed on. His research terminals went dark. Every one of them, simultaneously, in the middle of an active download process that should not have been interruptible by anything short of a complete station power failure. He stood up, looked at the terminals, looked at the door. He went to the door. Yeva Park was standing in the corridor. She had gotten out of her office. He did not know how. She was standing in the corridor with the posture of a woman who was in her station and knew it and was not going to pretend otherwise. She said, Science Director Hall Met. You are under station arrest pending Galactic Ethics Review. Please come with me. He looked past her. The corridor was empty. His security personnel were gone, evacuated with Wren's order. He looked at Yeva Park. She looked back. She had been locked in her office for 7 hours. She had built a transmitter from emergency kit components. She had a bruise across her left cheekbone from when she had tried to stop his teams from entering the cryo bay. She was standing in a corridor in her station, and she had said please with the specific tone of someone who was using the word, because she had been trained to use it, and not because she meant it as a request. He went with her. Sierra boarded station Kairos at the 43-minute mark. She went to the cryo bay first. She did not go to the command center first. She did not go to the docking assessment or the security sweep or the situation briefing, all of which were happening and all of which her team was handling. She went to the cryo bay first because that was where the people were, and the people were why she was here. And she had learned 11 years ago when she took this job that you did the work in the order that the work required, and the order this work required was people first. The bay was bright with the Drevian research lights which nobody had turned off yet. She walked through it. She looked. She noted. She did not stop moving until she reached Bay 7. He was sitting on the cryo platform with a thermal blanket and both hands in his lap, looking at nothing with the focused inward attention of someone whose brain was working very hard at tasks that usually happened without effort. She sat down next to him. She did not say his name. She did not announce herself. She sat down on the platform edge next to him, the way she had sat on the edge of his bed when they were children, and he had the kind of fear that was worse at night than in daylight. He turned his head slowly. He looked at her. He said her name. Wrong. 2 syllables, the first consonant too hard. The specific error that early awakening neurological disruption produced in speech when the damage had taken the pathway she had been afraid it would take when she read the risk assessment 6 hours ago. She took his hand. She said, I'm here. He said her name again, still wrong, the same error. She said, still here. She stayed for 4 minutes. Then she stood up. She squeezed his hand once. She looked at him for 1 more second with the expression that she did not let her face make anywhere else. She went to do her job. The report took 6 days to write. Sierra wrote it herself, all of it, every section. Her staff offered to draft components and she thanked them and wrote it herself because the report was the record and the record had to be right. Section 4 covered station personnel, what had happened to each member of HFY Park staff during the violation, HFY's own account, the medical officer's documentation. Section 7 covered the cryo population, each of the 1,000 individually, their status, their condition, the degree of disruption the awakening protocol had caused, the projected recovery timeline where recovery was expected, the permanent impact assessment where it was not. She wrote Section 7 last. At the bottom of Section 7, in the subsection covering cases where permanent impact was confirmed, there was one name that she wrote the same way she had written the other 43 names in that subsection. Full name, platform number, protocol duration at time of awakening, nature of disruption, severity classification, projected outcome. Marcus Voss, Base 7, 11 years cryo at time of violation, early awakening neurological disruption language pathway, permanent partial impact confirmed, severity, moderate, projected recovery of function, approximately 60 to 70% over 24 months. She reviewed that entry. She confirmed it was accurate. She moved to Section 8. The ethics review took 18 months. Hall Met's institution retained 4 lawyers and a public relations team, and submitted 47 supporting documents and 2 character testimonials from prominent galactic researchers. The ethics board reviewed everything. Their finding was comprehensive. 40 years of Hall Met's research, every paper, every dataset, every citation was reviewed for evidence of non-consensual data collection. 12 papers were retracted. The institution was fined. Hall Met was permanently barred from field research and from any research role involving non-consenting subjects. He was given a teaching position. The ethics board's finding noted that this was appropriate, because a man who had built his career on the premise that certain subjects did not require consent was now required to spend the remainder of that career explaining to students exactly what was wrong with that premise. His first lecture was on research ethics in cross-species biological study. He had prepared it carefully. He had prepared what he wanted to say about methodological rigor and institutional responsibility, and the frameworks that existed to protect research subjects and researchers alike. He taught most of what he had prepared. At the end, he said something he had not planned to say. He said, "I told myself the data was worth it. I told myself they were asleep and wouldn't remember and that the scientific value justified the means." He paused. What I did not tell myself because I was not willing to think it was that someone was responsible for them. That someone had made those 1,000 people their life's work. That responsibility does not sleep when its subjects do. I discovered this at 40 minutes' notice. He looked at the students. I recommend you discover it some other way. 6 months after Station Kairos, Marcus Voss called his sister on a Thursday afternoon. She answered on the second ring. She always answered on the second ring. First ring was too fast, suggested she had been waiting. Third ring was too slow, suggested she had been busy with something more important. 2 rings was exactly right. He had figured this out when he was 9 years old and had never stopped noticing it. His speech was better. 70% of projected recovery achieved in 6 months rather than the projected 12, which his rehabilitation team considered significant and which he considered simply what happened when you decided to work at something. He said, "I heard what you did." She said, "I did my job." He said, "You wrote my name in the report, under permanent impact." She said it was accurate. He was quiet for a moment, the specific quiet of someone organizing what they want to say. He said, "You didn't recuse yourself." She said, "No." He said, "Why not?" She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, because the 999 other people in that bay needed someone who wasn't going to let how she felt change what she did. She paused, and you needed the same thing. You needed the job done right, not done for you. The line was quiet for a long moment. Then Marcus said, "I'm glad you're my sister." She said, "Get some sleep." He laughed. Not all the way, the laugh was still slightly asymmetrical, the right side of his face doing more of the work than the left, the specific pattern the damage had left. But it was a laugh, complete enough to be a laugh, the kind of laugh that meant enough had come back for laughter to be possible again. She heard it. She said nothing. The call ended. She sat in her office and looked at the wall for a moment. Then she opened the next file. Station Hellos. Population 1400. 19 years into a 20-year protocol. The 40,000 spread across the galaxy in stations that existed because people trusted the Sleeper Accords and trusted the Sleeper Protection Division and trusted specifically her to make sure that trust was not misplaced. They were sleeping. She was not. She opened the file and got back to work.